I said the other day, I think the promise to Abraham that he'll have a great nation and he'll get control of the land, it's being fulfilled now, more than ever in history. Almost 8 million Jews in Israel. There were never 8 million Jews in the world. Then there were 16 about 100 years ago, but Hitler took 6 million away. I showed you this chart. Did you were you here that day?
Yes.
The population chart.
Yes.
How throughout history there was never so many Jews in the land of Israel. So maybe this is the best fulfillment of the promise to Abraham. It's not perfect. We haven't we haven't built the Beit HaMikdash. Not everybody keeps Shabbat, but
So we're going somewhere.
we're going somewhere. Definitely going somewhere. These elections, what happened? I think that the new government that's going to be formed, probably, is going to be more than half from religious parties.
That's good.
That's amazing. Never happened before. So many, 34 members of Knesset, and it's only going to grow because the population of the religious Jews grows faster than the population of the secular Jews. So I'm not saying we reached the final redemption yet. I haven't heard that Mashiach has come. Not in a process, going in the right direction. And it's a surprise to all of us. If you had asked me 100 years ago, is Hashem going to redeem the Jewish people? Is He going to save them?
Yeah.
Me, I was not alive, but people like me, Jewish people, religious people, they would say, of course, it's a promise of the prophets. But if you would ask them, do you think He'll bring the Jewish people back to the land of Israel through Herzl, through non-religious people, and the government which is, sort of a mix of religious and secular? Everybody would think you're crazy. We have to let Hashem surprise us. And He does. He always surprises us. We never know what He's going to do and how He's going to do it. And we can't claim to know every detail of how it's going to happen. But we have to judge what happened. Is it a good thing that the Jewish people have their own country in the land of Israel? Of course it's a good thing. It's a mitzvah in the Torah that the Jewish people are supposed to be in charge of the land. It's part of the way the Torah is supposed to be lived in the world. We don't have a king yet. We don't have a religious government. But it's part of a step along the way. And so that's why people agree. Because 100 years ago, for the last 100 years, many, many rabbis fought against Zionism because Zionism was understood to be a rejection of Torah. Either Torah or Zionism. Zionism is the new Judaism. That's the way it was understood. Baruch Hashem, our teachers and our rabbis understood that it doesn't have to be that way. We created a movement called religious Zionism. So we take the good elements of this political movement, which is, yes, we should settle the land and we should gather the exiles and have a country and an army and an economy. But we don't leave Torah. So it's the original, the word Zionism became like a flag as heresy, a rejection of God and His Torah. But you don't have to see it that way. Rav Kook didn't see it that way. Rav Kalisher didn't see it that way. There's so many of the great rabbis. They said, wait a minute. These people, even though they're secular, they're excited to be Jewish. They want to build the land of Israel. Those are all good things. Okay, they're not rabbis. They don't keep Shabbat, and they don't keep kosher. That's not good, but we'll try to fix it. We'll try to work on it. It doesn't mean we have to reject Zionism, the main ideas of Zionism, which is, let's go back to the land of Israel. That's a Torah value. So we can join forces with them and continue to realize that we're on a path. And this is the approach of religious Zionism. And with many people, they're still stuck. Even today, they're not willing to say the word Zionism. They think the word Zionism is heresy. It's kfirah. It's against Torah. But it's a shame because, the truth is, maybe at the beginning, some Zionists really thought that and understands that you had to fight against them. We're not rejecting the Torah. We're not rejecting the Jewish values that have been ours for thousands of years. Of course not. And so if that's all they said, and if that's all they did, of course we'd have to fight them. But Baruch Hashem, that wasn't the case. We realized that we can join forces on many of the good things that they're trying to do, and not out of a rejection of Torah, but as a fulfillment of part of the Torah. And the rest of the Torah we still keep Shabbat and putting on tefillin and that. And that's, we don't have to say that Zionism is an ugly word or a dirty word or, it's the worst thing in the world. It's not perfect, but if we develop an attitude which is also religious and also Zionist, so then we get the best of both worlds. That's what we try to do anyways.
All the Jewish people, they are Zionists?
Yes. Yes.
Because in Tel Aviv, if you ask some people, like they look like that to me, but they are against Zionists.
There's a small group, I'm not sure who you mean. There is a small group of people who look dati leumi, wear kippah sruga. We talked yesterday about these social markers. Well, sometimes the groups have a certain style of dress and so forth to create their identity as a community. But there are some people that are dati leumi, that studied with the rabbis who believe in such a good thing that we come back to the land of Israel, and they believe in Torah. But they're very frustrated by the government. Of course, famously, the disengagement plan, right? When they took the Jewish settlers out of Gaza. Heard of this?
Yes.
How many years ago did this happen?
2007?
Maybe, something like that. Yeah, 15 years ago almost. And so they said, we used to believe in the state of Israel, but now that if the state of Israel can do such horrible things, we don't want to have any part of it. I understand they're feeling betrayed by the government of Israel, but I think it's nothing really has changed. In the big picture, what I was describing to you about, we don't think that the government's perfect. The government's going to make mistakes. They have made mistakes. They've done wrong things. But we need to be part of the project to slowly but surely make it do better things. That doesn't mean that nobody ever said that the state of Israel is the perfect state. That is, Mashiach. We say there's something called Yemot Mashiach, the days of Mashiach. So it's the era of Mashiach. But anyway, so there are some people that from the Dati Leumi world that lost faith in the path of working together with the government, with the state of Israel, and seeing its importance. But it's a small minority. It's a small minority. Mostly the definition of being religious Zionist is Dati Leumi. They're pretty much the same thing. And that means that you are supportive of course, Torah and mitzvot, and you're supportive of the state of Israel and the project that we're trying to do and make the state of Israel better and better, and more and more Jews gathering in from the exiles. So there is that's the majority of the approach of the Tilumi. That there's one person here, one person there, a group here, a group there. Could be that they've lost faith in the attitude, but the major attitude, the major thrust of this movement is that we're trying our best to be part of this amazing national movement, and we have to keep working at it. And we're happy for what we achieved. Hashem helped us create a state. Hashem helped us beat all the enemies around us. We still have to fight. It's not over.
How you call the people you have in the Shomron? You have like a group. They fight against Arabs. How you call those people?
Amen.
Good morning, Israel. How are you? You got a raincoat. You're all protected from the rain. So, you know that 55 years ago, Israel won a war against Arab armies that tried to push us into the sea. The war was called? Six-Day War. The Six-Day War. Six-Day War. That's afterwards. That's a separate war, 6 years later. 1967. It's easy for me to remember because I was born 2 weeks after that. So the Six-Day War was so successful. Instead of the Arabs pushing us into the sea and destroying the Jewish state, we were able to win the war very quickly and conquer the area called Judea and Samaria. The area called Judea and Samaria, that's the heartland of ancient Israel. That's where all the kings were from, and the prophets were from, and the tribes lived there. And of course, it's part of our land. Internationally, it was never given to us officially. But we won it in a war of self-defense. So the lawyers, international law, they're fighting about it for 55 years. Still. It's called disputed territory. An area about which there's an argument. International. We say it's ours. They say it's theirs. And we don't know what to do. Till today. The problem is even a little more complicated because even the state of Israel never really said, oh, yeah, it's ours, and we are going to turn it into the state of Israel, and we will make it part of the official state of Israel because we're fighting within ourselves.
Like what they did to the Golan.
The Golan, we did say that. Many, many years ago, the Golan, we said for sure that's ours. We conquered it. It's part of our ancient homeland. We need it for our security. Everybody agreed within Israel, and we made the move. It's called annexation. To annex is to take over and declare sovereignty, to declare we're in charge of the Golan. We never did that with Yehuda v'Shomron, Judea and Samaria. Because some people say there's too many Arabs there living. And if they become part of the state of Israel, then maybe they'll win the next elections. Right? If there's so many Arabs voting, if they become part of the state of Israel, let's say it's another 1.5 million Arabs, well, that's 30 seats in the government. It's a lot of people. So some people say, don't make it part of Israel. Make a Palestinian state, an authority, some kind of arrangement.
Leave it like this.
So really what we've been done, we tried different things. We tried to make a Palestinian authority. they're not really interested in governing themselves. They're very bad at it. Whatever reason, it's not working well. Leaving it as it is, everybody accuses us of being conquerors and what's it called? Anyways, within Israel, there's a debate as well. And some people feel, of course, we should take it over. And we'll figure out what to do with the Arabs. And it's our land. It's the lands where Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and all the prophets, this is where they lived. This is where they prophesied. All the stories of the Tanakh are there. And throughout Jewish history, even later, in the First Temple period, Second Temple period, it's clearly Jewish country. Why shouldn't we take control of it? And this group, after 1967, a group of people decided, let's go and live there. Usually they're called settlers. They make settlements. You live in a settlement. I live in a settlement. We're both south of Jerusalem. That's called Yehuda. And the settlements which are north of Jerusalem are called Shomron, Samaria. So Yehuda v'Shomron, Judea and Samaria. And there's those are two major big areas. There's Binyamin in the middle, but those are the major areas which are under dispute. And it's been 55 years. And the settlement movement has been more and more successful, fighting against our own government, fighting against the other governments who want us to give it to the Arabs. Now there's close to 500,000 Israelis, Jews, living in these settlements, Yehuda v'Shomron. That's a lot of people.
The Arabs are 2 million.
They're not 2 million, but there are lots of Arabs too. Okay. We haven't solved the problem yet. But part of the idea of the settlement movement is that the more people that live in these areas, we could be able to convince ourselves and the rest of the world that this is our country, we get to keep it, and we'll have to figure out what to do with the Arabs. There's many ideas, but nobody has a perfect solution. So that's who the settlers are, okay? Many, many people are Dati Leumi who live not in the settlements, most. There's only 500,000 people living in the settlements, and another 1,000,000 people who are Dati Leumi who live in Tel Aviv and Bnei Brak and Petach Tikva and all around the country, Beersheva and all the parts of the country which are not part of Yehuda and Shomron.
Did you live in which Petah
I live in Tekoa.
Yeah, I always confused Petah Tikva and
No.
Tekoa. Tekoa, yes. It's based on Amos, okay?
Tekoa is where Amos lived, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Petah Tikva is also a Yishuv kind of vibes, of not?
Petach Tikva was one of the first
Yishuv kind of vibes.
the first settlements, not after 67, even before 1948. This is part of the land which was given to Israel officially by the UN. And, so Petach Tikva is right near Tel Aviv. It's not part of the settlements. I mean, 100 years ago, everything was a settlement. And that's the problem, that the Arabs, our neighbors, many of them, most of them, don't, they fight against having a Jewish state at all. They consider everybody, all of us,
Illegal.
settlers.
Yes.
Even people in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and Ashdod and Ashkelon and Haifa. They say, oh, you're all settlers. We want to kick you all out. Just like, it's been 70 years. They've been not accepting that there is a Jewish country here. And so in many of their eyes, we're all settlers. But Be'ezrat Hashem, we will continue the good fight to defend the state of Israel with good soldiers like you guys.
Can you trust an Israeli Arab? Can you trust him?
Just like it's a silly question. Can you trust a Jew? There's 1,000 types of Jews. There's so many different types of Jews. There's also so many types of Arabs. Many Arabs they don't care about the politics. They're very happy to live in a Jewish state because it's better conditions than any Arab state in the world, almost. They are very happy to leave the politics aside and just let me make my money and work for the Jews, for the Israelis, and go home at night. And they're very good people. There are many, many good Arabs. Unfortunately, the leadership doesn't support that direction. The leadership is very much fighting Israel for, we want our own country, and a lot of people are educated to hate Jews. The greatest concentration of anti-Semitism, people who hate Jews, in the entire world is where?
Israel.
Right here. Right here. Right? If Herzl's idea was, oh, you know why there's anti-Semitism? Because the Jews don't have a state. So we have to have a state, and then there will be no more anti-Semitism. Oh boy, was he wrong. Now there's more anti-Semitism than ever. And many times they call it anti-Zionism. But really, it's anti-Semitism. They want to kill the Jews. And so you'll see that when a Jew gets killed by a terror attack, many of the Arabs, even Israeli Arabs, will be happy. They'll celebrate. They'll be giving out sweets in the street. Many are sad. Not all the Arabs are the same. But the leadership is teaching all of their population that we have a war against the state of Israel. Anybody that any soldier we kill, any even individual we kill, many people are very happy. Many Arabs are very happy about it. So it's complicated. There's some Arabs that I would trust, and I bring them, to work in my home and do business with them. Some Arabs, you usually have to worry that maybe they'll change their mind. Could be the next day they'll come and stab you in the back. So you have to be careful. It's hard to distinguish between the good Arabs and the bad Arabs. Just like it's hard to distinguish between the good Jews and the bad Jews, right? There's some Jews that'll stab you in the back. But we know that there is a group here which is getting educated and being incited to hate. They say, when they have their demonstrations against the state of Israel, they don't say, down with Israel. What do they say?
Kill the Jews.
Kill the Jews. Itbahal Yahud. They kill the Jews. So for them, Israel and the Jews is almost the same thing. And so they're fighting against the state of Israel. On the face of it, it sounds like, oh, all we want is to have our own state next to Israel. But really what they say is, kill all the Jews. And so it's very complicated. I don't want to talk too much politics here. I want to teach you Torah, but it is very confusing to understand. And you started off with Zionism, you said the friend was very anti-Zionist. Well, your friend has to be careful. Because today, most anti-Zionists are anti-Semitic. And if he's a Jew, he's making a big mistake of being against himself. Right? The people who are not supporting the Jewish state, basically, it's very bad for the Jews. If there were no Israel today, Jews would be killed everywhere around the world, including the state of Israel, but also including New York and Paris. And one of the things which protects Jews around the world is that we have a strong state of Israel. So anti-Zionism is very problematic today, more than it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, that's what I was telling you, the history. Is it against Torah? Is it together with Torah? But nowadays, to be an anti-Zionist, you're playing into the hands of the anti-Semites. You're joining forces with the people that want to kill us. If you're against the state of Israel, it's very, very tricky business. Okay, so I hope that answers your questions. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin our class. Let's open up the laws of prayer. We're up to chapter 6.
Stephen's coming, Stephen?
Stephen's not coming today. He can't come today. He said he'll be listening on the YouTube. So if you're there, hi, Stephen. Something about a friend he has to help, but or no, the friend is helping his children get into school. We'll see. Hopefully. Yesterday we started off discussing the different nusachim. You can have it. You can see it here on the board behind me. Right? We talked about the two major nusachim. Nusach meaning, as it says, chapter 6, wording of prayer. There's two traditions, or two major traditions of versions of the words. The Siddur comes in a few flavors: chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Ah, you're Sephardi, okay? And what the phrase? If you like vanilla, you're Ashkenazi. Okay, because they're white, more white, right? They're both ice cream. They're both delicious. They're both versions of the prayers. Then there's something in between. Nusach Sfard. Right, we said Sephardi, Ashkenazi, and Sfard. Sfard is maybe, you could say, strawberry. Different flavor. It's mostly Ashkenazi prayers with some additions from the Sephardi prayers. But for the most, it's part of the Ashkenazi world in terms of style, in terms of singing. Like the Hasidim basically created this Nusach Sfard. It's very popular. In this yeshiva, we daven Nusach Sfard. So you go to the Siddur, it says on the outside of the Siddur, it says Ashkenaz. Do we have another Siddur here? It's also Ashkenaz. Here's one that says Sfard on it. I'll just show you. No, this is also Ashkenaz. And this is also Ashkenaz.
There are only two Sephardim Siddur, Machzor, and one Sephardim.
What do you mean only one? I don't understand what you're saying. Right? This is also, it says Ashkenaz. But there are Siddurim just like this that say on them Sfard. That's the one that we use upstairs. And then there's other Siddurim which say either Eidot HaMizrach or Sfaradi. And those usually have a different font also many times, but not always. But anyways, those are the different options. What were you saying? I'm not quite sure.
Sorry, because in the English department, if you're looking for Siddur from Sephardi, with only one. No, we don't have Sephardic Siddur.
In the library.
Yes, only.
Okay, in the library we have limited selection. We need to buy some more, maybe. But we only have ones in the English library that have English translation.
Oh, maybe.
So, but there are many editions with English translation of all the different types of nusach.
I have one of Sephardic.
Sephardic with English.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Art scrolls.
Art scroll.
So you remember, like,
Wow.
I saw it, all the names on the But then as also now remember I remember that Sephard. I was like, hey.
Sephard versus Sephardi is different, yeah.
But I thought Sephard was I thought Sephard was for Sephardic people who want to print Ashkenazi shul.
So that's what we're going to learn about now. What happens if you have your own personal nusach? You decided, okay, many of you are, when you convert, you get to decide which community you're joining. If you were born into a community, you should continue that community. We said there's 12 gates, right? That said in the heavens, there are 12 gates in the heavens. Every tribe of the 12 tribes, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, Bnei Leah, Gad, Asher, Bnei Zilpah, Dan, Naphtali, Bnei Bilha, ולרחל שני בנים, יוסף ובנימין, ובסך הכל רואים שהיו 12 שבטים. Good, you're learning it. Very good, I think you know it. You got all 12. Excellent. So there's 12 gates in heaven for the 12 tribes. And the translation is, oh, Shalom Aleichem. The translation, so the translation of that idea of the Arizal to nowadays is, we say that if you come from a community from Sephardi Jews, from Morocco, from Iran, you should keep praying in the Nusach of your father and his family. And if you come from Germany or Poland or the European countries, and your family daven Nusach Ashkenaz, you should continue davening Nusach Ashkenaz. It says here, Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz means Germany, right? And if you come from a part of Poland where your family joined the Hasidic movement, you should be davening Nusach Sfard. And every group should pray in the style with the particular nusach, the wording of their group. That's, even though we don't have tribes anymore, we translate that principle into sticking with your group, with your tradition. If you're joining and you don't have your family tradition, so then you choose to join one of the traditions. You can join to become Sephardi Jew, even if you come from Germany. And you can join to become a Yemenite Jew, even if you come from China. And so on and so forth. It's good to join a community. And then the question becomes, okay, so you're used to davening out of, let's say, a Sephardi Sidur. But you pray here. Here they're praying Nusach Sfard, not Nusach Edut HaMizrach. What do you do when there's differences? So that's what we're going to talk about today, B'ezrat Hashem. Amos, welcome back. How are you?
Baruch Hashem,
How did your meeting go yesterday?
It was good.
Baruch
I
Hashem.
have been stressed out, but it was good.
Yeah.
They asked me what is my name.
There's simple things.
Simple thing. I was ready, like we studied 700 questions. And they asked me that question, where you have been on the holidays? I don't understand. I said, at home. They said, you didn't mean it. I said, yeah, I was.
Right. Very simple questions. Yeah. Good.
It was funny.
Who did you meet with? What was the rabbi's
It
name?
was the Rav, kind of like Polish name, but I forget. He looks young, but he was probably
Galinsky or something? Or
80s.
what's his name? I forget. Anyways.
I have it on phone, my Rabbi.
You'll show me later. Say,
Yeah, I will tell you.
Rav Yossi was there with you.
Rabbi Yossi, told me what his name. Because my Rav asked who is he, and he knows my Rav, this Rav knows him.
Oh, okay, good. All right. And so we're waiting for the answer officially, but...
It will take some documents or? No, I need.
You already gave the documents, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I need to get for Bedin. Then that was before Bedin.
Right. Next step is Beit Din. Next step is Beit Din. And then they'll also ask you silly, easy questions.
Yeah.
Easy.
My wife, she was really stressed.
Okay. Baruch Hashem. And your daughter got married already or not yet?
No, she will be. And we want to be Jewish before.
I hope so. Yeah. When is that?
28th of December.
A month and a half. I see. Okay. Who knows? It would be nice. It would be nice.
Yeah, I have a break like long time ago that I hope it will be just.
Yeah, just a formality, pinprick or something. Yeah. Yofi, good news. Baruch Hashem. Okay. Welcome back, Amos. We're at the chapter 6 in the book of prayer. Good morning, Ravid. Good to see you. How you feeling? Staying warm? Maybe we'll turn on the heating. What do you think? It's a little bit chilly today. Put on some heating.
Here's a question.
Yeah, sure. About the Nusachim, yeah.
But I had a question from the meeting. Why we put the tefillin not on the left hand, but why we put the tefillin? Why we do the stripes on the tefillin? Why we do that? That was a question. One question.
They asked you that?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
I was thinking.
I'm glad it's not me because I don't know the answer to that question.
I have two answers.
I've been a rabbi for 30 years, a teacher for 30 years, and I don't know the answer to that question. What do they expect a convert to know the answer to that question?
You don't have an answer?
No.
Yeah.
It says you're supposed to tie the tefillin on your arm. So you have to tie them. But why specifically? I've heard many traditions. 7.
Why specifically, but why we tie them? That was the question. Why we tie them? The answer will be...
Because it says in the Torah, you should tie them as a sign onto your arms. That's the answer. Is that what you said?
No, he asked me why we put it on the left hand. That was the first question.
Yeah, and what's the...
I answered that... I said it's not because it's close to the heart, it's because that's the weakest hand.
Good. We learned
about it.
We're good. Because we learned about it. See that? I helped somewhat helpful. Yes, there's a derivation from the Torah. The word yad.
Around the hand, and I said
what did you say? You don't know.
I said maybe because we have been enslaved and we just remind ourselves that was one of the
That's a good idea. Yeah, it's a good idea. And what did he say? Did he tell you what he thinks?
Try to find the answer. It was all he said.
Because he's looking for an answer himself.
No. I am not a good source.
I'll tell you, mostly, once they are convinced that you don't worship another God, you don't believe in Christianity, and you practice, you go to shul, and you studied, then many times the rabbis are just bored. And they want to have an interesting conversation with you. It's not that they're out to get you.
No, I didn't know that.
So this is an interesting question. Why 7? Some people count 2 for Avram, 2 for Yitzchak, 2 for Yaakov, and then 1 more for good luck. I don't know why 7. 7 straps around your arm. You're supposed to tie them on your hand, but you tie them up here. Why 7 over here? It's a good question. I don't know of any early source which discusses it explicitly. There's ideas we can go there's 7 heavens.
Wow.
So maybe each circle is parallel to one of the heavens. We're saying that there's one God in all the heavens, but I don't really know that there's an authoritative answer. So that's why it's a little bit unfair question to ask, because right?
Only ask questions if he had an answer.
No, I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. What should be the yardstick? Only things that I know.
I heard from my rabbi in Amsterdam.
Oh, what did he say?
Why we do this the 7 times? It's about the Sifrot.
That's a
Of course,
wonderful.
we have 10, but we have
The 7 lower ones and the 3 upper ones. Yeah, that's a
So-
Kabbalistic reason.
Right.
But the first time the Sfirot are mentioned in any book, this Kabbalistic aspects of the way God runs the world, the first time it's mentioned is in the 12th century. What did the Tanaim do? Maybe they knew about the Sfirot. I don't know.
So he gave me this answer.
Listen, 7 is a very special number in Judaism. Why?
Holy no.
Why?
I just read that
It's
yesterday.
really Hashem made the world in 7 days.
Because Hashem created the world in 7 days, of course. So there's many 7s in Judaism. And we have to remember that Hashem created the world. That's a good answer. Doesn't say it anywhere in any book, but it's a nice idea. 7 Sfirot, doesn't say it anywhere, but it's a nice idea. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It's a nice idea, but I don't think that it's not the same thing as asking you, are you allowed to cook on Shabbat? That, it says in the Torah, don't cook on Shabbat. Very clear. Okay, the language is, something that we can discuss, but to ask somebody who, is supposed to be learning the most important basics of Judaism, why there's 7 straps of the hand tefillin is a little bit of a esoteric corner of wisdom.
He
Which-
didn't ask about 7, he asked why we do this stripes.
Why we do the wrapping? It's a part of tying it on the hand, right? We're supposed to tie it on the hand, and so we tie it in this particular way. Why in this particular way? Because we extend and we continue to wrap around the fingers as well.
Yeah.
So the tying starts over here and ends over here. It's a very long process of tying. But the Torah says, tie the ukshartem. We said every day in the Shema, you should tie these words as a sign on your arm and on your head. And so this is the way we tie it. Why we tie it in this particular way, it's a very ancient tradition.
Even
But you don't have to know why. You don't have to know.
and Ashkenaz do it on a different way, and Sephardic
That's
do it.
right. There's a little bit of a different way. That's right. Usually
Someone
it
had
works
the
out.
sin here, someone had the sin in the hand.
That's right. Different ways of tying with the straps. The straps make a shin on your hand.
We have
Right.
like one.
There's a shin on the head filling on the outside that's built in. But then with the straps, some people make a shin the way when they tie the straps onto the hand.
But why someone had the sin at the upper arm and not at the hand, and also the other way around? Why they make these choices?
It's similar to what we've been discussing, right? Why are there different wordings of the prayer? So the most ancient prayers are exactly the same. Like we said, page 81. It says, in the main prayers, those instituted by Anshe Knesset Agdolah, the differences are very slight.
81.
Very slight differences. Because everybody agreed them, but as time went on, and more prayers got added, so then the various communities started to take on little differences in their traditions, in the way things are done. So, like Eitan was saying, the tradition of tying the tefillin on the arm with the strap in the Ashkenaz world, the way they tie the box with the straps, it comes out that you're wrapping the straps along your forearm in, with the straps going in. Whereas in the Sephard tradition, they took on the way it's been done in the Eastern communities, and the tie is made, you tie on the box, but then when you come out to make the turns around your forearm, the straps are going outwards. This is a good way to distinguish between somebody who is Sephardi or Ashkenazi. Or Ashkenaz versus Sfard also. Ashkenaz is the only group that wraps the tefillin in, and Sfaradi wrap the tefillin out. These are differences minor differences. Both of them are tying the tefillin on their arm, which is what it says in the Torah. And the exact way it's done, there's differences between the communities. The way the fingering is done on the hands is a little different. So it does relate. This is a similar idea of different communities with customs. Yeah.
Sometimes you see people, they have the whole day they have tefillin, but the little one, the whole day.
Yeah, wow.
Why they do this?
They forget to take it off.
Maybe, I don't know. No, they're smaller, like the regular tefillin is big.
The truth is, if you look in the Torah and our traditions, in the Talmud, it never says anywhere really that you should take off the tefillin. You should put them on your arm and on your heads for a sign. Maybe a simple way to understand is that you should wear the tefillin all day long. Just like we wear the tzitzit all day long. It says you should have the fringes on the four corners of your garment to remember the mitzvot. So you should have the tefillin on your head and on your arm all day long to remember that God took you out of Egypt. Why not? And the truth is, at some point in history, during the Talmudic times, I think many, many people had that custom, wearing the tefillin all day long. Already though, at the times of the Talmud, there was a competing value that cropped up, and it changed that custom. What's the competing value? We have to preserve the holiness of the tefillin. The tefillin are very holy. We mentioned yesterday it's only the three holy objects, and you're wearing them on your body. You have to make sure that you are very pure and very holy when you wear them. What's the worst violation of the holiness of the tefillin? We've been talking about a separation between your upper parts and your lower parts. So having any kind of bowel movement or any kind of urination or even passing gas is a terrible violation of the holiness of the tefillin. You shouldn't be involved in your lowly bodily functions when you're wearing the tefillin. And maybe diet changed, I don't know, maybe the rabbis started to say, hey, if we wear the tefillin all day long, we will be desecrating the holiness of the tefillin. And we don't want to do that. And so the custom became almost universal, that we want, out of respect for the tefillin, we limit the time we wear them only for shacharit. Half an hour, however long it takes. Some people extend it a little bit. But the problem with wearing them all day is that maybe we will desecrate the holiness of the tefillin. There's some people today, like my son, who follows his rabbi, very small groups here and there, who say we can be strong and we can be careful to not violate the holiness of the tefillin, and we're going to wear the tefillin all day long. He doesn't work, he studies in yeshiva. Whenever he goes to the bathroom, he takes them off, and then he puts them back on again. And he wears the tefillin all day long. When he's davening, when he's learning. Some very special holy individuals. Do you know who was one of those holy individuals who wore his tefillin all day long? At least for some periods of his life. Rav Kook.
Really?
Right? Our mentor and teacher and leader of our group of religious Zionists. He was very supportive of the Zionist movement, and he wore tefillin all day long. It became something that only very special pious people do. Most people, the standard halacha is you wear the tefillin only for the shacharit, and you be careful for that period of time. And then, because we don't want to violate the holiness, we take them off. We don't wear them again the rest of the day. Once a day is enough. You put them on for once a day. You say the Shema, you daven, and then you take them off. And that's the standard practice. There are some unique individuals everywhere. But the standard is we take them off. Yeah?
So sometimes on Monday and Tuesday when we are going to read from the Torah,
Yeah.
some people, they change the tefillin.
So
And
yeah.
sometimes they also have two on their head.
Right.
So why is this?
Good question. You're observant, Ravid, but not observant enough.
Okay. Tell me.
I will. There was a debate about how to make the tefillin between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, two of the Rishonim. What's the proper way to wear the tefillin? It's a big question. How come they didn't know? Open up their father's tefillin, their grandfather's tefillin, they should know. And then, 50 years ago, maybe more, 70 years ago, they made excavations here in the land of Israel, near the Dead Sea. Masada. And it's a very dry area, and they actually found tefillin from the time of the Second Temple era, before the Talmudic times. And they found tefillin. Everybody's so excited. We'll look inside and we'll know who's right, Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam. What did they find?
Nothing.
No, they found both. They found both. So it could be that there were two traditions and they're both kosher. But Rashi said, this is the way you should make tefillin. Rabbeinu Tam said, this is the way you should make tefillin. And the debate was never really absolutely decided, because they're both right, probably. But the standard is, most tefillin in the world, everybody agrees that tefillin that you make the bracha on is the version according to Rashi. But it does say in the Shulchan Aruch, many poskim say you should have two pairs. You should also put on tefillin that are built according to Rabbeinu Tam's opinion. And so that's why you'll see many people. Hasidim are more careful about it than others, but it's not only Hasidim that have two pairs of tefillin. And every day, not only Monday and Thursdays, every day of the week, they put on Rashi at the beginning, they say the bracha, they daven all the prayers. Usually there's different customs when they switch. They take off the Rashi towards the end of the prayer service, maybe after the repetition of the Amidah, maybe after the Tachanun. There's many different traditions. They take off Rashi's tefillin and they put on the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, and they continue the rest of the service with the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, two pairs. Then there's a special group. There was the opinion of the Ben Ish Chai about 150 years ago in Iraq, a little less even, and he suggested make the tefillin very small, go wear them both at the same time. There's enough. The Talmud already says there's enough room on your head for two pairs of tefillin. In other words, where does the tefillin have to be? It's kosher if it's here and here and here and here and here. So there's a few places, there's room for two pairs of tefillin. The Talmud was not suggesting you wear both at once. But based on that idea that it says in the Talmud, if you want to fulfill both Rashi's tefillin and Rabbeinu Tam's, it is possible. Some people do that. As I said, there are different groups. The standard is what most people do is only Rashi tefillin. If you want to be extra careful, you buy a second pair of tefillin. It's a little expensive. And then you put that on as a secondary pair afterwards. And that's what you're seeing, but it's not as special for Monday and Thursday. Does that answer the question? Does that explain? Good, okay. Tefillin, okay. Nusach, yeah.
At which moment we need to say the bracha, and when needs to be the bracha need to stop? I learned when you tie it, then you need to say the bracha. And after you tie it, you need to be finished with the bracha, and you get on to...
Okay, that's correct. That's correct. There's more details about the tefillin. We'll have a class one day about tefillin. We'll go through the precise details. But you're right, like every mitzvah, before you do the mitzvah, you say a bracha. So before you put on your talit, you say the bracha. So before you tie the tefillin, you say a bracha. And then you tie them on. It's a little more complicated. There's two parts. There's tefillin of the head, tefillin of the arm. There's different customs among the communities. So it's for a whole class about the tefillin. But in general, yes, you're right that there is a bracha before you put on the tefillin. Yeah. Another question?
Yeah, but I have two questions. One is about if you for some reason the tie, you need to redo it. You do bracha again? Or
No.
It's the same principle.
Only if the loop, which good morning. Only if the loop which is making it tight around your arm, if that gets loosened and you take them off, so then when you put them on again, you might have to say a bracha. It depends how long it's been, if you took them off on purpose or by accident. For example, if you go to the bathroom, we talked about it yesterday. If you're praying and in the middle, you have to go to the bathroom. So you have to stop. You're not allowed to continue to pray if you have to go. We talked yesterday, you weren't here, but you can catch up in chapter 5, I think we were reading. There's laws about how badly do you need to go to the bathroom. Let's say you really got to go. You got to go. So you take off your tefillin and you go to the bathroom. Now, in the bathroom, are you allowed to wear tefillin? No. So it's a clear break. The custom is that when you come back from the bathroom, you have to say another bracha on the tefillin. Because you were in a state where you were forbidden from wearing tefillin. So it's an interruption from the first wearing to the second wearing. And so you have to make a bracha again when you put the tefillin back on. Yeah. The full set of brachot. If you say two, again, that's for another class. Some people say one, some people say two.
But what is the difference between talit and tzitzit?
That's good. The next point is that by tzitzit it's a little different, because there's really no problem with wearing the tzitzit in the bathroom. Tzitzit is not a davar shebikdusha. It's not a manner, an object of holiness. It's a mitzvah. So, and what do we do all day long? We have a tzitzit on us and we go into the bathroom. We don't get it dirty, hopefully, but you're allowed to go into the bathroom with the tzitzit. So it's true that the talit gadol, usually we take it off. But it's only a custom. It's not essentially forbidden from going into the bathroom with your talit. And so if you take off the talit to go to the bathroom, come back, you don't make another bracha on the talit because it wasn't a proper separation. It wasn't an interruption. And so you're just putting it back on. So you don't make another bracha on the talit, but you do make another bracha on the tefillin.
And why we call the talit tzitzit as we pray when we make this prayer on the beginning?
Right, because tzitzit is the mitzvah. The Torah says, put the tzitzit on the talit, right? Talit means is the cloak, and the tzitzit are the fringes. The bracha is to make the fringes on the cloak. So the bracha is about the tzitzit. I just want to say one more thing, going back to what we talked yesterday, the nusachim. So we've been talking about the wording of the prayers, right? But there's also other differences between the Sephardi communities and the Ashkenazi communities. What are the differences? Some of the differences are how we make the letters in the Sefer Torah. How the font, that's what we say it today. The font is a little different. How we make the letters in the tefillin. If you can look at the tefillin, on the head tefillin, there's a shin, right? The shin looks a little different if it's Sephardi tefillin. It looks a little different if it's Ashkenazi tefillin. And inside, the parchments are going to have a little bit of a different font. And that's why there's another difference. If you decide to join the Sephardi community, then you should buy tefillin that have the Sephardi font, according to the Sephardi poskim. And if you are Ashkenazi, and your family is from Germany or from Europe, you should continue with the traditions of European Jewry, and so you should buy tefillin and mezuzah also, according to the font, which was the tradition in the Ashkenazi communities. So you have to know there's a few differences between the Ashkenazim and Sephardi in terms of the wording of the prayers, which Siddur you use, but also which tefillin you put on. Most poskim say that if you're a Sephardi and you put on Ashkenazi tefillin, it's kosher. And as well, if you're Ashkenazi and you put on Sephardi tefillin, it's also kosher. And if you read from a Sefer Torah, even though you're Ashkenazi, you read from a Sephardi Sefer Torah, it's kosher. And the opposite as well. And I'll say to you also as well, when it comes to prayer, the Siddur, if you're Sephardi and your family's from Morocco, but there's a fellow here, very clear in the synagogue right next to us, Oel Yitzchak. He's very clearly a Yemenite. You can tell he looks Yemenite. He speaks with an accent of Yemenite. But you know what he prays? Nusach Ashkenaz. Many times he's the Chazan and he prays Nusach Ashkenaz. Why? Probably he was taught as a child. For some reason he was not taught the Yemenite traditions. And he was taught Ashkenazi traditions. And at some point, once you've been studying in that format, it's too hard to change. So, is it kosher? Yes. Because 90% of the prayers are the same. The most important prayers are exactly the same. Shema Yisrael is the same, whether you're Sephardi or Ashkenazi. The Amidah is almost all the same. A few words here, a few words there. So, if you happen to be in a place where there's no Ashkenazi Siddur, and you take a Sephardi Siddur, it's okay. It's still kosher. Just like if you put on the Sephardi tefillin, it'll be okay. It's not ideal. Ideal, we want everybody to keep their traditions. But it's still, they're all kosher, they're all good, all the different nusachim. Yeah, you had a question?
About so when we go through the Sheotim, we come back for the tefillin. We need to say again the bracha.
That's correct.
So it's also the same when we take this second pair of the tefillin when we change it.
No. The custom is that on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, you don't make a second bracha.
Okay.
It's almost universal. Even if you say it's an absolute obligation to have the two pairs, the bracha is made on the Rashi tefillin and not on the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Right.
That means if you want to buy a Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, you need to ask for Rabbeinu Tam.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
And about the question about Nusach, you mentioned before we started all of the discussion that we can choose later what we will be, which Nusach we will.
Well, when you become a Jew,
they will ask me on the.
No, they won't ask. But you have to know for yourself.
Yeah, I know.
They don't care. You have to care.
Yeah.
I assume you're from Europe. You'll be Ashkenazi,
Yeah,
no?
Ashkenazi.
You'd live in an Ashkenazi community, so you'll pray with Ashkenazi. Now, it could be that there's a Sephardi community near you. I don't know. Ashkenazi is two branches of Ashkenazi, Ashkenaz and Sfard.
We do Sephardi now.
So if you do Sfard. So whatever your community does, that's the most important, I believe. So you should fit in, integrate into the community. So if you live in a community where the standard style is Sfard,
yeah. But we have Sephardi and Ashkenazi Sham.
you have Jews of both types.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. But whatever.
It's really different who is leading the prayer, that he sing different songs, he likes his style,
Right.
to follow.
Okay. Yafe. Okay. More questions? Or we can go ahead. What do you say? Not yet.
Think about questions you may have answers.
Only questions that I have answers to. Not questions like that Rabbi asked you. Why do we put the What kind of question is that? Poor young man here who studied so hard the most important things, and then he gets asked a little corner of. You ask somebody who's new to Judaism, ask him, what are the tefillin? What do they look like? When do you put them on? Those are basic questions. Why we wrap 7 times? That's a very esoteric question.
I'd like to ask another question, not about this matter.
Okay.
I had this long time in my head, I forget, it's about Sukkot. I read you're supposed to build your sukkah after Yom Kippur. But I see also people, they do it between Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
But
Right. So I think maybe there's a misunderstanding here. The custom is written down in the books that when Yom Kippur finishes, the first thing you do is to go build your sukkah.
Right.
Because you should go from one mitzvah or from purity of being forgiven of your sins and involve yourself in mitzvot.
Right.
But it never says that you're obligated to do it only then. You can do it before, you can do it afterwards, you can do it the next day. It's a nice custom that right after Yom Kippur you involve yourself with building the sukkah. But if you know you won't have time, and during those 4 days, you can start earlier. Nobody said you can't.
So you can do it after Rosh Hashanah.
Sure, you can do it before Rosh Hashanah.
Because I was very surprised here in Machon Meir, they start before Yom Kippur to build this.
Why not? There's no reason not to.
Okay.
There's no prohibition.
It's not okay.
None whatsoever.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
This was my-
Yeah, it's confusing.
Thank you.
Michael, how are you?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember one time the explained about the what's it called?
Nusachim, is that what we're talking about? The
Yes.
Nusachim, the different wordings?
But this
Different
you can
traditions?
See you can see the difference in the Peseke de Sumra, can?
Okay.
That is the question.
There is a difference. You can see the
Yeah,
difference. What is the difference? The major difference between Nusach Sfard and Sfaradi versus Nusach Ashkenaz is the beginning. The beginning of Psukei de Zimra in the Nusach of Sfaradi and Edot HaMizrach starts with Hodu. Hodu is the beginning of prayers, right? In Nusach Ashkenaz, it doesn't start with Hodu. It starts with Baruch She'amar, or Mizmor Shir, and then Baruch She'amar. The Hodu is said after the Baruch She'amar. Whereas in these traditions, the Hodu, this passage of prayers, of collection of psukim, is said before the Baruch She'amar. That's it. That's all. Very, very, very clear. If you open up a Siddur and you can't, let's say this is rubbed out, and you want to know, you can't see what it says over here. So you open it up and you want to see, well, I can't tell if it's Ashkenazi or Sephardi, or Ashkenaz or Sfard. Look for the Baruch She'amar. If the Baruch She'amar is before the Hodu, then it's Ashkenaz. And if it's after the Hodu, then it's Sfard or Sfaradi. Okay? So this is one way to tell between Ashkenaz and Sfard. So let's go on and move ahead. We did section 1 yesterday. Let's move ahead and look at the top of page 82. Additionally, so it's the end of section 1 in chapter 6, in the laws of prayer, in Pnimi Halacha. Page 82, the first paragraph starts with additionally.
Addition distinctions.
You have it, Pinchas, you have it? See where we are? 82. 82. 82. Eita, why don't you read for us, please?
Okay. Additionally, distinctions.
Differences, yeah.
Exist among the ethnic groups regarding the pronunciation of certain Hebrew letters, Sadi and Kuf, as well as vowels such as Kamatz and Cholam, and each group must continue its custom. If, however, people change their nusach, they still fulfill their obligation. For all the existing Jewish tradition relating to the reading of letters and vowels and permitted to pray for prayer.
Okay, so you know how to say hello in Hebrew?
Shalom.
Shalom. And how do you say hello to you? The full expression is Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom
right? Alechem means unto you. Peace unto you. Shalom Alechem. Alechem Shalom, Yafeh. This is the Sephardic pronunciation. An Ashkenazi Jew, my grandfather, he would never say Shalom Alechem. He would say Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. It's a different pronunciation. Instead of Shalom, Shulem. Instead of Aleichem, Aleichem. Different. It's the same word. Pronunciation is different. They're all kosher. And if you go to a school of Ashkenazi Jews or Hasidic Jews, they teach them to pronounce the way their fathers and their grandfathers pronounce. Shalom Aleichem. Shema Yisrael. Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem Echad. Right? Sephardi pronunciation is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Sounds different. It's the same words, but the pronunciation is different. The most famous one everybody knows is the Taf or the Saf. Right? Do you say MS or Emet? It's different traditions. How to pronounce a Taf or a Saf. Sephardim are not as precise as Ashkenazim in this matter, because the more precise is there's a difference whether there is a dot in the taf, or if there's no dot, it's a saf. Sephardim say it's always taf, always taf. And by the way, modern Hebrew, the people in charge made a decision. In Israel, we're all going to use the Sephardi pronunciation. So that when you go to the bank, you'll be able to understand each other. That'll be the standard. We teach all our children the Sephardi pronunciation, even though most of the Jews who were leading this movement were from Europe. Mm-hmm. They felt, and they were correct, that it's an easier pronunciation to follow, and that became standardized. So you have Ashkenazi Jews who live in Israel, they speak Hebrew, but they have an accent. Why? Because for davening, for prayers, and for Torah, they're taught to the pronunciation of the Ashkenazi Jews, with a saf and an o for cholam instead of an a. But then when they go to the bank, when they go to the store, they have to speak modern Hebrew pronunciation, which really is Sephardic pronunciation, some version of Sephardic pronunciation. And so they speak Hebrew with two different pronunciations, one when they pray and one when they go about their daily business. This is good. So we'll see that, there's it can be confusing, of course. Tov, let's continue reading on page 82. Micha, why don't you read for us? Number 2.
Number 2. No nusach should be considered more preferable than another. The Chida writes in the name of the Ari that the Sephardic nusach ascends through all 12 gates. Therefore, in his opinion, Ashkenazim are permitted to switch to the Sephardic wording of prayer. However, the Hasidim claim that their nusach is of higher quality. They maintain that the prominent Hasidic authorities investigated numerous wordings and formulas of the Kabbalah and selected the best among them. Those who pray in Nusach Ashkenaz assert that their custom is the most meticulous, for it was passed on from person to person as far back as Shimon HaPakuli. Furthermore, the foundation for the Sephardic Minhag lies within the Amoraim and Geonim of Babylon.
Of
Babylon,
go ahead, yeah.
Where is the basis for the Ashkenazic Minhag originates with the Amoraim and Geonim of Eretz Israel. who were more proficient in Agada, Chokhmah, Hasod, and Nusachim of prayer.
Incidentally,
that is the reason for the similarities between Nusach Ashkenaz and the original Yemen Nusach. Yes, can I say something?
Okay, let's finish the paragraph first. Yeah, Yemenite
The
Nusach,
Yemenites,
Baladi.
the Baladi, the Yemenites too claim that the Nusach is more precise for the Jews of Yemen, and all their years of exile did not wander. Instead, in response to the persecution that the Arabs inflicted the Yemenite Jews, intensified their devotion to Torah and observed the custom with extra stringency. Indeed, the Yemenite Torah scholars were found to be closer in accuracy to the Nusach of the precise Keter Aram Sova.
In summary, every minhag possesses its own advantages. And it is not in our power to determine which minhag is more praiseworthy. Rav Melamed sees the big picture. And he says, the Sephardim think their Nusach is best. Ashkenazim think their Nusach is best because it comes from the land of Israel. And the Hasidim say their Nusach is the best. The Yemenites, of course, think that their Nusach is the best. What am I supposed to do? Rav Melamed says, we can't determine which is best. As the Khatam Sofer writes in Responsa 15 of the first volume, all Nusachim are equal. He maintains that the Ari composed his kavanot for Nusach Sfarad Chasidi because he was accustomed to praying in that Nusach. However, if a person like the Ari were to have resided in Ashkenaz, he would have written his kavanot based on Nusach Ashkenaz. So even if we were to know that a particular minhag is more precise, it would still be proper for each person to continue his own minhag. For even the less accurate minhag surely possesses advantages that others do not exhibit. Only after the Sanhedrin is reestablished will we be able to institute a uniform nusach, which will include the benefits of each minhag. Though even then, there will be room for different emphases in the additional prayers and varying melodies corresponding to the 12 gates, each community according to its ways. So, many times I hear rabbis, and I actually don't listen to too many rabbis. You know where I hear the rabbis speaking?
YouTube.
Nope.
And
For my students, come to me and say, this rabbi told me. That's how I hear what the rabbis are saying. And sometimes I hear this rabbi told me that I must daven Nusach Sfaradi because that's the best. And then another student comes and tells me, he says, this rabbi says that I must do the Nusach of Chabad. Right, I hear that a lot. Chabad rabbis, they say, this is the best. Take our Sidur, use this Nusach, right? They buy you tefillin, they'll help you buy tefillin, they'll choose this Nusach of the Chabad rabbis, right? We said it's one of the branches of the Nusach Ari. Right? They think theirs is the best. And then another rabbi will be teaching, and they all teach publicly. And they all say, Ashkenazi customs are the best, and you should follow them. So, what do? I try to teach you that each rabbi is teaching their community. And they're right for their community. I can't say that they're right absolutely. We have no way of deciding which one's better, which one's worse. Each one has something, a claim that why they're the better nusach. The bottom line is they're all kosher. They're all good. They're all mostly the same in any case. And so I don't get into the fight. Everybody should choose their community if you get to choose, or continue if you belong to a community. You should perform your Torah and your mitzvot and your davening according to your community and your rabbi. You should have a rabbi that guides you according to the customs. For you, that's the right custom. To say a statement like everybody should become Sephardi, everybody should become Ashkenazi because we're the best. I think that we live in a very mixed world, and we have ingathering of the exiles, and there's so many. And if we want everybody to keep their customs, that's what we should do. But I don't like it when I hear this rabbi. My rabbi told me that I have to do this. If you're joining his community, you do. But if you're not in his community, the other rabbi is going to tell you the opposite. So you have to join a community and follow those traditions. And now we learn from so many rabbis on YouTube. There's so many rabbis. And the YouTube rabbi said, this is the way. So if you're part of his community, follow his guidance. But we have to, I think as rabbis, we have to be a little more aware and conscious that not everybody listening to us is part of our community. So I'll say what I think is correct. For my students, for people who join my community, but it's not for everybody.
So would you like to say to your students, don't listen to too much rabbis because it makes you so much confused? Or
it's always good to learn Torah wherever you can. It's good to join a yeshiva where you have direction from, a rabbi that you believe in, that you think, that you trust, that will give you a direction. It's best if the yeshiva community is telling you the same thing as your local community. Sometimes there's differences though, so you have to navigate. You have to know how to navigate between the rabbis. It's good to, I'd never tell anybody to not learn Torah.
I think it's wonderful to listen to different rabbis.
Sure, yeah. I'm never going to tell you not to learn Torah. But
it's confusing very much.
It's confusing.
It keeps you awake.
Okay, good. You're right. If nothing else, it keeps you awake. But you have to recognize that not everything that every rabbi says is the halacha for you.
Right.
It's the halacha for him and for his community and people who follow his direction about, how they should live their lives. But just because you're listening to his shiur, that doesn't mean that you are part of his community. Right? You have your local community rabbi. Maybe you have your personal rabbi. Maybe you have your yeshiva. Maybe you have your traditions. You have your customs. And so you listen to as many rabbis as you like. But you have to understand that there's going to be differences between some rabbis, directions, and so the halacha can change between the Sephardi halacha, Ashkenazi halacha, and so on and so forth. Okay? Yeah.
Is there any, not obligation, but maybe obligation, maybe requirement that you should have a rabbi which you follow? Or?
Yeah. So this is a good question. Having a rabbi. Very good question. I don't know if it's in this book. There's other books where he talks about it. You need guidance. It's very important. The Torah is given not just a book that you read. There's something called the oral Torah. Oral Torah is by speech. It's not written down. That keeps it alive. It keeps it dynamic because the Torah has to be applied differently in every situation. And so it's important to have a live rabbi that can guide you. And in addition to the books. So let's say though, and I said you have to choose a community, choose a standard, choose a nusach that's yours. So you should follow the halacha of that community so that you can find that halacha in books, right? A book that where they describe Yemenite halacha. If you choose to be Yemenite, or if you happen to be Yemenite, so you study that halacha. But let's say you have a question, you don't know how to apply that to today, so you need to have a rabbi that can give you guidance. It's a very good thing to have a rabbi. It says in Pirkei Avot. What does it say? Asei lecha rav. Make for yourself a rabbi. It's good advice. It's not quite a mitzvah. Mitzvah is to do the mitzvot, right? But to get guidance is very good advice. And you should have a rabbi. Many times I get calls. This week I got 2 calls from former students of mine who are both married, and they decided for some reason, among all the rabbis that taught them, and they still study Torah, together they decided, when we have questions, we're going to ask Rav Menachem Weinberg. Okay. So I try to do the best I can, and I give them the answers, whatever I think in each situation, and I give them guidance. It's good to have a rabbi that you decide that I'm going to follow. It's not an obligation, as I said. The obligation is to keep halacha of your community. But sometimes there are things which are not written, or things that are, confusing, or things that are not explicit, and you should have guidance of a rabbi. So choose for yourself a rabbi. It's better than, now today I'll choose this rabbi, and tomorrow I'll choose the other rabbi, and the third. That's not a very wise system. Because maybe the rabbis are, have different opinions, and,
They also have different experience.
That's right. The best, though, is a rabbi who knows you, and he knows your situation.
But just suppose there's a beautiful rabbi. I like to talk to him. He's very young, maybe he's 30 years.
Okay.
It's only an example. And I want to talk with him about some issues of a marriage.
Right.
And he's just married maybe for 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
And then the other rabbi, like you, married for a long time, have experience about marriage.
I try.
And because marriage,
I'm getting on in years. Yes.
It's a journey.
Sure.
And
yes.
so maybe I feel much more comfortable to talk to you about this.
I'll say even you can, and I'll say even better than that. There are some rabbis who are experts about tefillin, for example, because they studied more about it and they practice it. Maybe they're a sofer, they're right, and so they're experts on the laws of tefillin. And so you say to yourself, well, if I have a question about my tefillin, I'll ask that rabbi, because he's the expert. And if I have a question about the laws of business, well, my rabbi is not involved in business. He never studied those topics in depth. So I'll choose the expert in business law. Makes sense. That's possible.
Okay.
That's fine. Although it is important maybe to still have a personal rabbi who knows you. Because the halacha, where does the word halacha come from? What was last week's parsha? Lech, lalechet. Halacha means to walk. To walk on the way. So halacha has to walk with you. And if you have a special circumstance, maybe your children are Jewish and you're not Jewish, or you're Jewish and your mother and father are not Jewish, or the opposite, or you have a situation where, very special, your brother is an alcoholic and your sister is married to a non-Jew. There's so many different situations. Or you come from a Sephardic land, but you were in Ashkenazi schools your whole life. There's so many specific cases, and only the rabbi who knows you well, maybe he knows that you were once not religious and now you are religious. Maybe he knows you have trouble with the issue, or your wife has trouble with the issue of covering her hair. She finds it very difficult, and she has that issue. There's so many different issues. Maybe he knows that you've tried to have children for 5 years and you couldn't have any children, and then you did some special medical procedure, and now you can have children. So when the couple comes to you with a question about having children or raising the child, the situation colors what the halacha is. It changes what the halacha is. The halacha is different for different people. Famously, they tell stories about the greatest rabbis, and the students want to learn from their rabbi. And question number one comes in, person number one comes in, and he tells them the question, and he gives them the answer. And then they leave, and person number two comes in, and they ask him the same question, and the rabbi gives them a different answer. And the students ask, what's going on here? What's the answer? I want to learn from you. And the answer is, It depends on the situation. It's not only what it says in the books. You have to apply what it says in the books to the relevant situation. And who's going to know you? So it's not only a question of having the expert. It has to be a combination of an expert. Of course, you want somebody, the best expert, but he has to understand you and your situation. And that's why it's important to have a personal rabbi. Again, it's not absolutely obligated, but that's the good advice. That I think the Pirkei Avot was telling us, Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a rabbi. You should have a rabbi that you feel comfortable asking questions, even personal questions, because otherwise you might be getting it wrong. You might be doing the wrong thing. You think you're doing the right thing, but you're not a rabbi and you don't know everything. Most things are quite straightforward and the same for everybody, but in unique situations, in very special ones, it's good to have a rabbi to consult with. And the rabbi who knows you is very important. In some cases, it might even be more important than choosing the expert. Right? Because the expert may tell you the pristine halacha, but it may not apply to your case. Now, a good rabbi won't give an answer unless he knows the situation, the reality at hand. Unfortunately, I think sometimes, well, definitely if a rabbi is just teaching on YouTube, he's teaching the general rule. He's not telling you the specific halacha in your situation. And so maybe the rabbi is misunderstood. He can say a general practice, but if you came to him privately and asked him, this is who I am and where I came from and what's going on with me in my life in the situation, even that same rabbi who taught in the public shiur, this is the halacha, if he knew your personal situation, maybe he himself would realize that the halacha is different in this case. And so it's important to have a personal rabbi. And many times, people come to me, unfortunately, and they thought they were doing the right thing, but they didn't ask a rabbi. And for them, for that situation, they were applying the halacha wrong. Very clear. Everybody would agree. They thought they were doing the right thing because they read it in a book, but maybe they misunderstood the book, or maybe they didn't realize that in this situation, this value overrides that value. You can be very careful about one halacha, but you're overriding another halacha, which is more important. So you really need to have a rabbi to ask. It's a good idea, very good idea. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but it created another question, but you already answered like
Ideally, the rabbi should be a rabbi that knows how to answer you according to your nusach, according to your eidah, according to your ethnic custom. If you're a Sephardi, he'll give you the Sephardi halacha. If you're in the Ashkenazi community, he'll give you the halacha according to the Ashkenazim. Not every rabbi can do that. Some rabbis only learn the Ashkenazi halacha. Some only learn the Yemenite halacha. He's an expert on Yemenite halacha. But I'm Ashkenazi. He says, go to an Ashkenazi rabbi. What are you asking me for? Rav Melamed, for example, he likes to see all of the halachot. Sometimes he'll say, Sephardim do X, Ashkenazim do Y, Yemenites do Z, and sometimes he'll say, the core of the halacha is the same for everybody, and he'll minimize the differences, but sometimes you will choose your rabbi because you have joined the Sephardi community. You should have a Sephardic rabbi. It makes sense. But you should hopefully get to know him, and he should get to know you, and he should know, have the full picture of who you are. It's not enough just to say, oh, well, he's Sephardi and I'm Sephardi. So I'll ask him.
Yeah, right.
Right? Okay.
I heard also, if you ask a rabbi a question, you should to follow him. But if you don't like the answer and you ask another rabbi and you like this answer, but you need to follow the first rabbi you ask. Is it true?
It's a good question. It's a good question. Unfortunately, many people abuse the system. Like you said, you could go shopping for an answer that you like. I'll ask 10 rabbis. 9 out of the 10 will say, let's say you want to do something, and the 9 will say it's forbidden. So you'll keep asking until you find the rabbi that says it's permitted. Are you really asking what's the halacha, or are you just trying to get, abuse the system? So that's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. That's where it comes from, that if you ask a rabbi, you should, ask him only if you intend to listen to him, not just for shopping for opinions. Sometimes you are just studying. You don't have a practical question. You want to learn about the rabbi, and you want to understand how he views things. And it's okay to ask questions if they're not a practical, immediate question for you to answer right now. And then you choose who you're really going to ask your question that you should. But if you ask a rabbi a question because you want guidance and you trust him, and he tells you the answer, even if you don't like the answer, you should follow his words. It's not really a question of prohibited, but that's the way the system is supposed to work. Why are you asking the rabbi for? Not just to go shopping. You want to know what to do. So if you once you've chosen your rabbi, you ask him. You should follow what he says. Now you can. There's no hard and fast rules. Let's say you ask your rabbi. You chose a rabbi, and you ask him one question. Gives you a difficult answer. Okay, so you accept. And then you ask him another question, and you get a difficult answer, but you accept. And a third, ask a difficult answer. And then you say to yourself, I don't think he's the right rabbi for me, because he's not understanding what my situation is, and he doesn't understand. You can switch rabbis. It's not like it's you're signing on for life. I am a student of Rabbi Menachem Weinberg. You don't have to choose that forever. But hopefully, you'll choose wisely, and you should have a rabbi that you follow on questions that are the bigger questions. The smaller questions are in the books. You can ask the local rabbi, and but be aware that, of course, there are different opinions, and that's halacha is very dynamic. Okay, does that answer the question? Yeah, Amos. 1 second, Pinchas.
I'm trying to find out the compare what we are talking about. I mean, is there any type of like a relationship between me and the rabbi? What I choose, and how they will be looking? Just calling for the answer and question. That's not creating relationship. Should I? Is that necessary to have a relationship, or is it just like having a counselor and you talk to him for the session, and then he talk to you back, and
right?
How that function in the social way of having it?
It's a good question. It's a good question. There are different relationships. Ideally, I think the best thing is that you should have a relationship with your rabbi, so he knows who you are and what your situation, and you can learn from him, even not just direct questions, just from seeing how he conducts himself. Being close to a rabbi is a very good thing. Again, it's not obligated. And many people don't do that, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing, by all means, to have a relationship. Go to visit him, pray with him, talk to him before and after, the holidays. Some people give a gift to their rabbi on a holiday every once in a while, and they go to his sukkah, and there's creating a relationship with the rabbi is a continuation of that same advice. Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a rabbi. It's not merely just a legal thing of choosing your team. It's being part, and he'll be able to answer you better the more you have a relationship. Yes, I think it's a good thing. Pinchas, last question for today. We're running out of time.
The situ of the Chabad,
Yes.
Chabadist.
Yes.
Are different from the Ashkenazi.
A little bit. A little bit.
Only a little bit.
Only a little bit. Yeah. Most of the prayers are the same, but there are little changes. Yes. Tov, we'll stop here for today. B'ezrat Hashem. We didn't get too far in the text. I think these are important discussions.